Hey there, this is Linda G. Robert, your Back in the Groove Again coach, helping you live your best life now so you can love what you do. Are you in a relationship? Maybe it's a new relationship and everything is going fine. But then something happens and it changes everything. Listen up, I'm going to share my experience with you. So, some of you know that I'm now in a relationship, and we met several weeks ago and we hit it off. Actually, I think he's great. He's fun to be with, and he listens to me. And of course, I'm attracted to him. He gets along well with a lot of people, so there's a lot of great qualities. And I noticed fairly quickly that he was, kind and giving, and that he liked to help people. And we had a really great time. Everything was going fine up until about a week ago. Something happened. I'm not going to get into the details, but suffice to say, something happened, and my boundary was crossed by a member of his family, not by him, and I reacted very strongly, like extremely strongly. Not during the time it happened, but afterwards. And I shouted. I was very livid. Oh my God. I couldn't believe it because I don't get like that. But I was extremely mad. I left to go pick up the item, and then when I came back, he was gone. And that whole weekend, this was last weekend, our communication was sporadic. He said he was going to show up at a certain time and he would be late, and so things started changing. And then he stopped responding to my texts, and he stopped responding to my calls. Now that silence stuff was 2 days, and then I got a text saying that he wanted to meet with me, and we needed to talk, and that we would talk that night or the next night, and that never happened. So for the duration of that period, like from Sunday to, well, maybe Thursday, I my feelings were, they fluctuated from sadness to frustration. I was trying to, figure out why he wasn't responding to my text. I was thinking of the worst case scenario, that he dumped me. I was preoccupied in my mind as to the why he wasn't responding. My insecurities came up, feelings of abandonment came up, feelings that maybe I'm not good enough came up because of what had happened with the relative. And I mean, I did a lot of thinking, and actually exhausting thinking. And I realized a couple of things. Now, I want to stick this to personality differences here. I've talked about the Myers-Briggs type indicator on another video, and I'll add the link here. I'm an N for intuition. Now, with the Myers-Briggs type indicator, you have different preferences. And when it comes to the N, it's how we take our information, how we get information. So the N is, we get our information from more of a global view. We get information from different places. Could be from, our prior experiences. It could be from education. It could be from what we've heard. We just gather information, and then we kind of put it all together, and we start thinking of all the different possibilities that could happen. And that, because I knew that I was an N, that I'm an N for intuition, is what made my brain think like crazy, man. Like crazy, okay? And that part, that way of thinking, lasted about 3 days. I mean, I did everything possible to reconnect with him. reconnect with this man. I sent him a few texts, not too many. I called a couple of times. I even went to his place. You know, he wasn't there, or when I did go in the morning, very early in the morning, because I woke up really early, preoccupied. Door was locked. I even had gone the night before, and I took a photo of us and I put it in a frame, and I wrote a little love letter. And anyways, I put that in his trailer, because we live in a trailer park. I have my own trailer. He's got his trailer in a trailer park. And I thought I did everything possible to let him know that I love him. I care about him. Because I thought at one point with my whirlwind thinking that he needed some space. He needed some time off. But I also thought that he could have at least let me know, you know, that he was taking time off. I was thinking of every possible thing. So by the time Thursday came around, Thursday or Friday, I was really tired. My brain had been thinking like crazy, and I hadn't been sleeping that well. And by Thursday, I started actually feeling at peace and grounded again. So that process lasted about 3 days for me. Thursday, I'm feeling grounded. I'm feeling at peace, and I had accepted the fact that he was not going to respond to me, and I was still upset, but I wasn't feeling as upset, you know. I was still sad, but I wasn't feeling as sad. So I was feeling pretty good, content. And on the Friday, I spent some time with my granddaughter. We went for a hike. You know, that was great. And I came back after the hike. I came back home. Oh, I want to add, I'm just going to back up here, that on the Tuesday, I got a text saying, yeah, we need to talk. And I might have said that. We need to talk. I'll Tuesday or Wednesday, you know, depending on what time I finish work. That's what he said. That never happened, right? No talk, nothing. So that's why, like on the Thursday or Tuesday and Wednesday, I thought, perfect, we're going to have at least a conversation. But it never happened. Eventually, I got, you know, I accepted the fact that he was not communicative. Now, I remembered during that whole process that, oh yeah, men do that. Men do that. And it's like, oh my God. You know, I haven't been in a relationship for so long. All this crapola stuff hadn't come up at all in so many years. Like I'm talking about over 10 years here, even not more. The pain that I experienced, I hadn't experienced that in years. In fact, I couldn't even remember when the last time I experienced that. And I had completely forgotten that men, and for whatever reason, I couldn't understand why he went and went rogue or went silent or whatever it was that he went through. I didn't know why, because of course I never talked with him, and my mind was trying to figure out all sorts of different things. But I remembered that. I remember that men go into their cave, right? When something's not right, when they have to think about things, they go and they go in their cave and they do something to busy their minds because it's too much for them to worry about this, to worry about that. And especially when they get stressed and when they have other demands on them. Men, in my opinion, can't seem to handle that. Women is different. We are really different, man. But it's different for men. So then I started understanding, okay, maybe that's what's going on. I started feeling better. And then Friday, after the hike, I went back to the trailer. And then I saw him. He passed the street, he passed the little path really quickly. And then I thought, oh God. Oh man, I started feeling those feelings again. I saw him again. And it was bound to happen. It was bound to bloody happen, right? Because we live in the same trailer park. Coffee time. We live in the same trailer park. It's bound to happen. But he didn't see me. Maybe he avoided me. Whatever. The point is that I tried to manage my emotions at the time, pretending that it wasn't bothering me, but it was. And so what I did was I made a decision to leave, to go out of town. Now, the day just before I got that text saying, yeah, we needed to talk, I had already talked to a couple of girlfriends. That's what we do. Women talk to girlfriends, man, right? We got our support system. Very important. I talked to quite a few girlfriends, and one of them in particular, Julie, if you're listening to this, said, why don't you go out of town? Go to Ottawa. So that night, I'll get back to Friday in a second. That night, I packed my bag and I was ready to go. My bags were packed. I ended up by talking to the neighbor before I left, and she said, oh, I would just go over there. I would just go to his trailer and say, what's going on? And I said, oh. Which is why I went to the trailer in the morning when he wasn't there. So when I got back in my car after talking to my neighbor, I noticed I had the text, and then I was like, oh shit, what do I do? I'd already told my friend I was going to Ottawa, and I left, pulled on the side of the road, called her up and told her, I got a text, I don't know what to do. He wants to talk. So I decided to tell her, I'm not going to Ottawa, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I went back to the trailer and waited, right? Waited. Well, I did other things, obviously, but I waited. And then Friday, when I saw him and I couldn't handle it, I said, you know what? I'm going to Ottawa. So that's where I am right now. So I drove. I'm driving. Of course, when I drive, the ends think of everything. But the good things that came out, and I recorded these things, were what I learned about myself. I learned that I did try to take time in this relationship. I did try to, set some type of boundaries, but he knew that I liked him, and I did like him. And I think we both came to a point where it was like, we're meant to be together, man. We're meant to be together, and I really thought that. So I learned that I maybe rushed into things a little bit too much, but the emotions were there. And, once you have the emotions, it's really hard. It was really hard for me to kind of take a little step back. But I did communicate properly with him. I learned that I am ready for a relationship. For over 12 years, I was not in a relationship, okay, at all, for various reasons, and I was very happy being single, extremely happy being single. I've posted a lot of videos on being single and being happy, and I was. And then when I got to Mexico, a few things happened that gave me the indication that my beliefs were changing. My beliefs around being in a relationship were changing. I started believing that I was going to meet somebody. For the last umpteen years, I didn't think I was going to meet somebody. And I wasn't looking, and when I was, I went online. I just, it wasn't for me. Online profiling, going online, it wasn't for me. So I decided to, just be myself, be natural, go out and be open. If I wanted to, be open. And so I did that in Mexico, and I noticed that there were men that I was attracted to, and I think they were attracted to me. So that gave me that belief, I know now that I'm going to meet somebody. And sure enough, moved to the trailer park, meet somebody. It's like, oh my God. Anyways, so now I know that I am able to be in a relationship. I have all the skills required. I have the communication skills. So if you're thinking of getting into a relationship, make sure that you, and I'll probably do another video on that, but you will know when you're ready or not. You will know when you're ready to start dating or go out seriously with somebody, even maybe even live with them, you'll know it. Trust your gut. That's one of the ways, right? One of the ways. Trust your gut. So I knew I was ready, and I learned that during this process that I am ready. I am definitely ready. I even, did, like, I'm not really the very romantic type, but I did some things that were romantic. And I even started thinking of activities that we can do together. And I thought in the past that I was boring. But that's another thing I learned. Guess what? I'm not boring. I'm not boring at all. That's another thing I learned. So, anytime you're in a relationship, whether it's a short term, long term, you learn things about yourself. And that's always a beauty. That's always a good thing. So I learned things about myself. And I had, I talked about that in one of the audios that I recorded. And then I also said to myself, I noticed some red flags. I didn't notice the red flags at the beginning. But I started thinking about things that he did that were red flags. Now, not sure if they're deal breakers, but they're things that I'm aware that, And on that note, everybody's different. I'm going to do a whole other video on red flags later on. But everybody's different. So my red flags may not be your red flags, right? Just because, for example, I'm trying to think of one. Just because I've noticed, like in my case, I've noticed that he says yes to a lot of people. We live in a trailer park. He lives in a trailer park, and a lot of people ask him things to do, and he says yes. It's not necessarily a red flag. Where it was starting to clue in that it was a red flag was when I noticed that he was getting frustrated because he kept saying yes. I think he's the type of guy that wants to please. It's not necessarily a red flag, but I'm aware that if he keeps saying yes, that he might at some point be frustrated with me, and that could be an issue. So I'm just keeping it in mind, So red flags are our own red flags, but I'll do a whole video on that later. So, a few things that I noticed. So here's the thing. I had also told myself on the Thursday that I was not, I repeat, not going to text him or call him again. No way, man. I was taking my power back. Coffee time. I was taking my power back. So, I didn't text him, and I haven't. And then as I'm driving to Ottawa last night, guess what happens? Come on, try to guess. Yes, I got a text. I got a text. And yes, I thanked God. Thank you, God. Because I had prayed to God. I had prayed to God. I do care about this man. I do love this man. We got things to talk about, okay?